There's no denying that a life of travel can bring you many incredible experiences. But does it leave you ultimately lonely? Does it give you a feeling that nothing will ever be enough? This is a topic that rarely gets talked about, but I think it's worth diving into. I'm going to read you a comment I recently read on YouTube. It's a bit long, but actually it's one of the most interesting comments I've read in a long, long time. So stick with me, and then we're going to discuss this idea of loneliness within travelers. Okay, so the comment goes like this. An old vagabond in his 60s told me about it over a beer in Central America. Well, what a great way to start a comment. The more places you see, the more things you see that appeal to you, but no one place has them all. In fact, each place has a smaller and smaller percentage of the things you love, the more things you see. It drives you, even subconsciously, to keep looking for a place, not that's perfect. We all know there's no Shangri-La, but just for a place that's just right for you. But the curse is that the odds of finding just right get smaller, not larger, the more you experience. So you keep looking even more. But it always gets worse the more you see. This is part A of the curse. And I'm going to keep reading about part B. But, I think that idea that of finding a place that's just right, that's powerful. I mean, that's powerfully relatable, in fact. I sometimes wish there was a city out there that where I could get, the fresh morning baguette that I had in Paris, and the amazing, flavorful soups that only cost $1 that I had in Vietnam, and the perfect weather that I had in Medellin, Colombia, and the ocean next to the mountains of Vancouver, and the friendly people of Mexico City, and all my favorite things from all my favorite places, the subway system of Seoul, Korea. But there is no place. That place with little bits of everything, it doesn't exist. It's just a fantasy in your mind. And so it spoils you in a sense. It gets you looking for something that doesn't even exist. Part B is relationships. The more you travel, the more numerous and profoundly varied the relationships you will have. That's definitely true. But the more people you meet, the more diffused your time is with any of them. Since all these people can't travel with you, it becomes more and more difficult to cultivate long-term relationships the more you travel. Yeah, I would also add the older you get, the harder it is to cultivate those long-term relationships. Even if you're living in one place, you tend to know more people, and then or you just tend to get older, busier. It's definitely harder to make friends in your 30s than in your 20s, and in your 20s it's harder than in high school. So it's just, kids out there, make your friends while you're young and hold on to them if they're worth holding on to. That's all I can say. Where was I? Okay. Yet you keep traveling and keep meeting amazing people, so it feels fulfilling. But eventually you miss them all, and may have all but forgotten who you are. And many have all but forgotten who you are. So you're missing these people, but they've gone on with their lives. They forgot about you, or you're just a name of a person they knew once. Now that's the tragedy of human existence sometimes, isn't it? That's one of the worst feelings, when someone means a lot to you, but then you realize that they don't even care about you, or worse, they've forgotten who you even are. That's something rough. And then you make up for it by staying put somewhere long enough to develop roots and cultivate stronger relationships. But these people will never know what you know or see what you've seen, and you will always feel a tinge of loneliness. And you will want to tell your stories just a bit more than they will want to hear them. The reason this is part of the curse is that it gets worse the more you travel. The travel seems to be a cure for a while. Yet the travel seems to be a cure for a while. Wow, this is like a poetic. This is why I like this comment. It's quite poetic, actually, the way it's phrased. That detail about people, you want to tell your stories a bit more than they want to hear them. It's like the grandmother sharing photos from a photo album. Here I am with my best friend Carol in 1962, and here we are at the restaurant that doesn't exist anymore. It turned into an Amazon fulfillment factory. The kid who's like 16 years old, they're like, all right, grandma, like, you want to tell me about the war, or you want to tell me something more interesting? I don't care. I don't know who these people are. This building's gone. That's kind of what it's like when you're a traveler sometimes. These moments that mean so much to you can be hard to express to someone who's never seen these places or experienced this way of life. These are cherished memories to you, and then they're just stories to nod along and be like, oh, cool, yeah, sounds good to someone else. They will never fully understand the depths of your experience, and that can be very lonely. But we're almost done the comment. Let's go. It concludes by saying, none of this is to suggest that one should ever reduce travel. It's just a warning to young travelers to expect, as part of the price, a rich life tinged with a bit of sadness and loneliness and angst that's like the same nostalgia everyone feels for special parts of their past, except multiplied by 1,000. Okay, multiplied by 1,000. Damn. What do you guys think? Is it the curse of a traveler to be lonely and do you sacrifice your own fulfillment for the experiences? I mean, think of it this way. Some people, get married young, they have kids, they build a family, and maybe they don't have a lot of money because they were 22 when they got married and they had kids, and they don't have a steady career yet, and they're still struggling. It's hard just to pay the bills and keep the kids fed. And so are you traveling? No, you're not even thinking about traveling. Vietnam, Mexico, Colombia, these places don't exist. You're focused on your city and your kids and your wife and your husband, and you're together, and you have this tight bond together. And, maybe if your life is tough and you don't get any lucky breaks, maybe you never get to travel. Or maybe you're 65, 70 years old when you finally take that dream trip. You miss out on the world, but you gain this depth of connection with these individuals around you. The few people who are with you for all of it, you are so tightly bound to, like inescapably bound together. Whereas the traveler gets all of the experiences, but none of that extreme tightness to any single person, because the only person, except themselves, because the only person who's been there the whole time is themselves. Especially for solo travelers. I mean, when I ended my relationship with Nari, that was one of the, even when you break up with someone and you know that you're not, you know that the two of you don't have a future anymore, it's also like you feel nostalgic for the past, because it's like, well, we shared all these moments together and no one else was there for all of it. Like, we know this part of each other like no one else. And when the relationship ends, that connection disappears. Like a father or mother or grandparent who has passed away. It's like you can't get that back. The connection has been severed in a real way. Not that a breakup is like a death. Obviously, like you can later reminisce, but I guess my point there is that, as a traveler, you might be in a relationship and like you might share it with them. You might have some friends who you traveled with, and you tend to get drawn very tightly to the friends you travel with. or also the friends you meet while traveling. Like some of the people I met on this last trip, incredible human beings who are still on my mind all the time, even though I'm back in Montreal. But that's the curse. These people from all around the world, you'll never be all together. You might dream about it. You might dream about like, oh, I'm going to go travel. I'm going to meet everyone. But some people will have got married. Some people will have moved on with their life. Some people will be on the other side of the world traveling, because travelers never stay still. You know, they're always moving. And you're going to have a bit of loneliness or a bit of nostalgia for those times that are past. And when you talk to your parents or your best friends back home and you feel different, but they look the same, sometimes I worry that I'm making my other friends feel like inferior, or like somehow I'm being like some hipster snob when I'm like, you wouldn't understand what it was like. But it's not out of it's not out of like pretentiousness or like I'm better than you. It's just like literally you can't understand, because like let's say I spend 5 months I don't know, let's make up a place I've never been to. Let's say I spend 5 months in Ethiopia, and then I see my buddy from Winnipeg and he's like, so Dan, how was Ethiopia? And it's like, well, how was the last 5 months of your life? Tell me that in a sentence or two. Like, it's not easy to explain. There were moments of intense joy. There were moments of pain. There were times that made you cry. There were people who made you laugh and that you will never forget. There's a lot. So normally you just say something cliche like, oh, it was good, man. Or, oh, you got to go. The people are awesome. Or, yeah, the food was great. And they nod and they go, yeah, it sounds cool. But they don't actually understand the experience you had, and they never will. Maybe that's why I try to write books, and maybe that's why I make videos, to try and give some glimpse of what the experience is like. But it will never capture the whole experience. Only traveling yourself can capture the whole experience. And of course, even travelers can never fully understand each other's experience. And so it's almost like you're at a rehab. Like you can just share stories. Oh, this is what my drug addiction or my alcohol addiction was like. What was yours like? You tell me about your travel addiction, I'll tell you about mine. But we will always be a bit separated from everyone around us. Maybe that's just the human condition. I mean, that comment kind of hinted at it at the end by saying that everyone feels this way, but travelers, that sense of nostalgia for the past is amplified by 1,000. I know my dad, when my dad was early in his life, my dad worked for the Canadian government for almost his whole life. And he started in the Foreign Service, and he spent a couple of years living in Haiti. When he was very young, he lived in Haiti at the Canadian Embassy working there. And he always has stories. Like whenever I'm talking to him about something that happened to me in Mexico or anywhere that I'm living, he's always like, well, I remember when I was in Haiti, and then he'll tell a story. And it's the same thing. It's not that I don't care. Like, these stories are important. They're my family history. They're my dad's history. I want to hear them. But there's always a part of you that, like, even when you try to actively listen, you're just like, I can't understand. I've never been there. And even if I went, I mean, it's a different place than it was back in the 80s. Like, it's not the same country anymore, you know? And so there's a part of his experience which will always be his own, as much as he tries to share it with me and with others. And it's the same for my experience, and it's the same for your experience. So if there's one lesson here, it's I would say you really have to live for yourself before everyone else. Like to kind of, and I guess also to just like be gentle with other people who don't seem to understand. It's easy to feel frustrated, to be like, why don't these people around me understand like how much I've changed, how these experiences are so important to me? They don't seem to care. I tell my stories, they get bored. It's not that they're bad friends, like well, they might be, but most of them, like, they're probably not bad friends. They can't relate. You're like an alien from another planet. They're just trying to understand like what you're talking about. But if they haven't been through that themselves, travelers are weird. We are a weird group, and we're a weird group that is blessed with incredible experiences, but we are cursed with a bit of loneliness and a bit of sadness. People sometimes tell me when they watch my videos, they're like, Dan, you look sad. Which, by the way, is kind of a jerk thing to put on a random stranger's YouTube comment section, but sometimes it's true. Sometimes I am sad. That's just how my mind works. Sometimes I get nostalgic. Sometimes I get lonely. I can definitely relate to 99% of what was in that comment, because it's just... yeah, life is hard. Like, in general, I think making friends is a hard thing to do these days. The pandemic has made it harder. Social media has made it harder. We all feel like everyone is doing stuff all the time, and we're just stuck here doing nothing. And then people probably watch my videos and they're like, oh, Dan has like it all made. Like, look around, Dan's out there traveling again. He's with these new friends and he's having all these good times. But like, at the end of the day, that's just one day. It's not like I'm sharing. Not like I'm making videos of the boring days like today where I didn't do anything. I'm showing you the highlights, and you watch only the highlights, so you think that's my whole life, but it's not. I have lonely, depressed days as well. I think deep down, all of us do. It's just some of us. I mean, maybe not everyone. Maybe some people are happy all the time, but I think a great number of us. Struggle with these things. And it's true amongst travelers. It's true amongst people who are married with kids. Whatever life path you take, there will be ups and downs. There will be ups and downs.